and welcome to the Healthcare CEO Show, where you'll find actionable insights on healthcare leadership from the best and brightest in the industry. I'm your host, Daniel Fernandez. Let's get a pulse. This season is focused on the intersection of M&A and the healthcare industry. And with me today, I have Dr. Kalika. He is the CEO of Orthodontics. On today's show, we're going to be talking a little bit about his journey in orthodontics, how he carefully selected the right PE partner to help with growth and expansion, and some future technologies that he'll be introducing into the practice as they continually grow. So Dr. Kalika, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I appreciate having me.
Thanks. Now, you have had a remarkable journey from Harvard to leading innovations in orthodontics, even as an international chess master, which I find extremely interesting. How has your experience in chess influence your strategic approach to growing the practice and making critical business decisions in a highly competitive field like orthodontics?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But to answer it in a simple way, chess is a game where you don't only make the next move, you start thinking about strategy and you're thinking about 16, 20 moves ahead. The best chess player is the one who actually can count more moves in their head and then, realize it strategically. And I think both as an orthodontist clinically and also as a CEO of Image Specialty Partners, my goal was to kind of almost predict what's going to happen in our industry in the future and try to connect the dots. So I was talking about potentially financial partner for the growth, very early when the private equity was entering dental market. And I saw that there's an opportunity for consolidation. So the fact that I, play chess, right, allowed me to, not that I know the future, but to really strategize and think what's going to come in the industry for the next 10 years and where the industry is going and in terms of not only consolidation, but also innovation. And I think early on, I started thinking about it and setting our company for success.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your process of carefully selecting the right PE partner, because you talked about looking ahead and you're having to balance strategy with risk. What were some of the key factors in making that move, to select the appropriate partner for growth?
Well, in terms of the searching for the partner, we actually took a very methodical approach. It took us about a year with all of the partners that joined Image Specialty Partners. It took us a year to interview all of the potential partners that we felt was a good fit. And in terms of finding a right financial sponsor / partner, one of the most important things was their track record of how they worked with other portfolio companies and an ability to predict, because we wanted something stable and we wanted a trusted partner that will grow with us side by side. But as you know, in any industry, you have ups and downs. And, it's the time of the downs that's more important. How is your partner going to support you? So when we found the OnCap, which is Onyx Capital, one of the most fascinating things to me that I really liked is the fact that they never impaired capital on any of their investments, which means they would hold, a portfolio company longer, even if it means that they need to make improvements that are slow and steady or wait for the right market. And so that the fact that there's stability and an ability to kind of work with the CEOs and the partners to grow the company in good times and in bad times, that's what attracted us to this partner. But we've looked over 50 partners and spent about 12 months for the process.
Was there anything about this partner that was appealing to you, whether it be how heavily involved they were or maybe how autonomous they let you be as you grow the practice?
Well, of course, at the beginning, when you're looking for a partner, you're just trusting the story of what the partner was going to tell you in terms of how hands-on or not hands-on they're going to be. So I feel the most attraction was the fact that they never lost any of the portfolio companies, and they never impaired capital, which means every investment they've made in the last 40 years turned into something more positive. They had a good return on investment. The second thing that I would say is I did a lot of conversations with the CEOs from the portfolio companies, and a lot of CEOs were saying, we're still involved with this partner, we're continuing to have a relationship, or we're actually using our personal investment to invest in their own funds. So, the fact that they had this, trust and ability to build those relationships was the most important factor. This was not the partner who gave us the best price or the best evaluation. This was a partner that was the best fit for us.
That's amazing. So you're talking about, people who've worked with the firm who are still working with the firm post-exit, even, on other investments.
Yeah, so some of the CEOs from their portfolio companies worked with the firm, had an exit where they recapitalized the firm, and then years later they're still investing in their new fund. So they trust them as investors, as individuals after working with them as CEOs. That was very, very attractive because I just didn't see it in a lot of other private equity companies, that this relationship and an ability to keep the partnership and put it in front of the line is very important.
Now, as you expand, there's a couple of different approaches. You can expand through de novo locations, new locations, or through acquisition. How are you using both of those strategies in your growth?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy is always to expand through multiple modalities, because what can happen in the market, the acquisitions can dry out. And or for example, is what happened in the last couple of years. The interest rates are very high, and the sellers, the doctors who are trying to partner with us, they still have expectations from their friends who sold 3-5 years ago that they're going to get a certain multiple, but those multiples are not available. So in those kind of times, right, where you feel like you want to pay very fair market appropriate evaluations, the growth through de novo is very important, and the ability to show that we can take a practice. I mean, we've done a lot of de novos in the past before we had financial partner, where we took a practice and over a certain amount of years we really improved it. And I think de novo growth is just as important as the acquisition and partnership growth. And to have an ability to be versatile is very important. Same thing is that image specialty partners, we have multiple specialties. So we didn't just pick orthodontics to be our partners. We basically said, what's going to be in the future? The orthodontics alone is not the future in my vision, even though I'm an orthodontist and I love my profession. I feel like, taking children from pediatric dentistry and being able to influence the growth of the patient and also the health of the patient, the dental oral health, and keeping that relationship, and then moving into orthodontics and potentially oral surgery. So we call our platform from baby tooth to wisdom tooth, right? So it's basically we start the children early, and some of our pediatric partners, work with orthodontists, and the new studies about airways and systemic health, it all points out that if we can change the delivery of dental care and really think about the patient overall, and start working on it when they're young, and really continue that process, we could influence their health. So that's also an important factor of why we're doing this multi-specialty, but also, as you mentioned, multi-growth strategy.
Yeah, that's the caring for the patient in the entire life cycle. That makes a lot of sense. As you're looking to bring on new acquisitions, not de novo, but new acquisitions, how do you vet potential partners? Is there any sort of vetting process?
Yeah, we prefer to have relationships with our existing partners. That's the best way to grow. So if somebody knows another partner and they've went to residency with them, or they're teaching with them at the school, or they know them personally and also professionally, and to have an ability to bring the right partner is very important for us. So we purposely do careful selection of who we want to acquire and who wants to be part of our kind of, we call it dental family, by really getting the backdoor references and also talking to other people and having our own partners, because it's a fairly small world, and everybody knows each other. So you would hear, oh, this person is very ethical and honest, and they're hardworking but great orthodontists. We would love to partner up with them.
Once you've brought them on board, well, then you have the retention aspect of it, right? So how do you, once you bring on a partner, make sure that they're fully engaged throughout the growth, especially for an organization that's very tech forward?
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? I mean, I think that's the engagement of the doctor post acquisition is very challenging. I don't know if anybody could really figure it out, that formula, because it almost feels like that engagement is contingent with the time that they sign up to be the partner, right? Some people say, okay, I'm going to continue working for 4 years, but they really like the platform and they work for much longer. So in terms of engagement, it has to be kind of contingent with some of the ethical standards that the partners have. And when they join a group, we basically say, when we have partners meetings, which is every quarter, we talk about, like, listen, we're all here for each other. We're here to improve not only our lifestyle, which is part of our mission statement, but we're also here to improve the overall business. This is our responsibility for our investors. And the interesting thing, we don't only have partner doctors, all of our management team are partners. So everybody from the executive team, from a person who does operations to the person who is interested in financials, including the controller level positions, they're all partners. So a lot of this appeals to the emotional side of people, because we have employees who work with us for 20 years plus, and we want them to realize a very good return on investment. And so we're not only working for us, we're working for each other and for our employees who are our partners. So it's not just the doctors. Most of our key members have partnership in our platform.
Yeah, you make sense when you're talking about stakeholders. It could be anything from patients to the team as a whole. People can be resistant to change by nature. So when you're bringing on new partners, how do you ensure that you maintain some of the same cultural values that you hold to be true across the organization during times of change?
Yeah, I mean, we went through the exercise with all the partners, and we have annual meetings where we talk about the culture. This is the most important piece in our puzzle, is to be able to continue the culture that we created. And there's some, core values that we have. So before we partner up with somebody, we show them the presentation, we tell them, here's our core values. What are your core values? We'll try to interview them to make sure they match. One of the core values is innovation or efficiency, which means that we want to be efficient with our approach and treatment. And if the partner is saying, well, it takes me 5 years to finish orthodontics case,
Right.
where somebody else can finish it in 18 months, that might not necessarily be a perfect match for us. Or, we have in our mission statement that, we want to realize certain things for our platform, including innovation. So if they're not innovative, that's okay, but they need to be able to embrace innovation. Like, all of our softwares are in the cloud. The cybersecurity is a huge issue now in the modern healthcare, and everybody talks about it, how different companies get hacked. So we need to have the cybersecurity piece in place. That means that the doctors who are joining us need to get technologically advanced, and we would help them to do that. It's just the question is, they have to be open to that possibility. So we discuss this ahead of time. We say we use AI for multiple things, and we're going to be able to implement it in your practice. That's how we acquire a partner and improve their practice, by technology, by patient communication. We use Salesforce Cloud, for example, right? I mean, and create patient journeys of how the patient needs to go through the process. They need to be able to embrace that change. And as long as we set the expectations ahead of time, I feel like everybody is is on board.
You compared it chess to thinking ahead, 20 plus moves, and I assume there's a lot of calculated planning that goes into that. How often are you all meeting collectively, and how involved is everybody in the strategic planning of the organization?
I feel like everybody is involved through both daily communications, but also communications with the regional management. And I try to meet with my partners, at least quarterly, face to face. And, we would set up a business plan, sit down with a partner and a manager and say, here's what I think your, office can have in terms of improvement.
Yeah.
What do you feel? Are you embracing this change? And somebody might say, listen, I really like the plan, but I don't feel like we're ready to change the software in the next 3 months. Let's do it in the first quarter of 2025. So of course, we listen to our partners and we really accommodate, we try to figure out what are the best practices. Like we have a clinical committee that decides, here's the best practices from all the partners and let's agree on it and sign off. And then we'll try to implement it in the offices. And some people are more, I want to implement yesterday, and other people give me a little bit of time because right now I'm working on my rebuilding the team, or a couple of key members of my management or my office had a turnover. I'd like to make that stable before we make a next change. So every partner is different, and some are more autonomous. Some are asking for, I'd like to jump into best practices. So we do it very collaboratively. I feel like there's enough input from everybody for them to feel like they understand why certain things are being done.
Now, as we look ahead, let's take a look at what image orthodontics looks like in the future. What does the practice look like as you continue to grow? Maybe I hate to use a 5-year benchmark, but it seems to be the most common. What does the practice look like then?
Yeah, I think that obviously constant innovations, right? We already use AI, not in a loose sense, because everybody you talk to now likes the buzzwords AI.
Right.
But I was involved with a company called Diagnocat, which is probably the earliest diagnosis. I was a CEO and a co-founder. The earliest diagnosis of X-rays using AI modalities. So we're using that to do 3D segmentations and analysis of orthodontic and decision making early in the treatment of the patient, being able to measure the airway. So a lot of innovations are part of our DNA. I feel like for us, we went in the last couple of years, we all went on the cloud, even though we had different partners and different softwares. And we connected to a lot of common financial systems like Sage Intact. So we have practice management systems that are connected to financials. We created our own dashboards that are very sophisticated that we're going to roll out with the partners, where they can make decisions, and the AI is being built on the back to really help people make decisions now. How's my month going? Where can I pivot today? So my goal is to be the most technologically advanced company, orthodontic company, in the market, and I think that's part of our DNA as well. So the latest project is we just trained an AI. Her name is Amy, an AI digital employee. It's our first digital employee that we onboarded, and this is a kind of a virtual team member, right? Obviously, it's an AI, it's not a real person, who has an intellect to make their own decisions. And so we're in San Francisco, in the epicenter of AI movement. The open AI is here and other companies. And so I think that in the next 5 years, we will have a lot of communication of patients with AI agent, measure the customer service, measure patient satisfactions and the doctor satisfaction, having objective measures of the results of the treatment, like how satisfied are your patients, how good is your orthodontic treatment, and we want to get to the outcome-based treatment. And I think we're going to get there in 5 years with using some of the robotic technology in our offices, which we already use, but we're going to advance that quite a bit. And some of the AI monitoring technology where we can monitor our patients from a distance, which we use as well. But there's few things that are proprietary to our group that we're working in the background and building with algorithms and AI that will help doctors really improve their practices and lifestyle.
I think your approach to AI is brilliant. You're not intimidated by it, and you're looking to use it for ways to enhance your practice. What advice would you give to somebody who's listening right now that may still be a little intimidated of these newer technologies that may not have incorporated any of those things yet?
I mean, my advice is, number one, embrace that change that it's coming. It's almost like .com in the past, right? When people didn't use internet, and the people who started using internet, they could get so much more knowledge. The AI is the next, I feel, bigger revolution in our, not only in our lives as a, everyday human, but also in a business and with our family, and how you're going to communicate with the future generation. So, go slow, get something like Chat GPT version, start using that, then maybe a more enterprise version, where it can automate some of the processes for you. And then, start looking around. What are my peers? What are they looking into? How are they making decisions? Where does that help me, to be more efficient, to be a better physician?
I love that. And two final questions today on the show. There's a saying that leaders are readers. Do you have a favorite book that you've read recently, or something that you'd want to share with the audience?
Well, I always read. I think that the book that I like, a lot is Frankel's book. Where he talks about, he was an Auschwitz survivor and talks about the search for meaning, right? For me, as I'm getting into my 50s, the search for meaning, like what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, what's the meaning of my life? Like what I want to leave behind is very important. I think it's a very good book to kind of stop and think about, what are the values and that you want to carry on and pass to your children, but also what's the meaning of life. And so that was a very interesting book, and I've read about it before. And my mom is a Holocaust survivor, so it kind of connected a lot of her reflections on being in the ghetto to his book about the search for meaning, right? And I started going a little deeper into myself, maybe philosophically, to think about what is the meaning of my life? Why am I working so hard? What else can I do in the next journey of my life cycle, as I would say? How important is the work, and what's the balance, and where do I want to spend my time? So that was a very interesting book. I highly recommend for people to read it and also think about it. I also like reading for fun, so I usually read two books at the same time. I like a writer, Jeffrey Archer. So he's a very good writer, where he typically writes about two different stories, but combined in one book, and you almost read one that's disconnected from another, and then they connect in the middle. Like one of his books is Cain and Abel, very, very kind of fascinating story, and he's a good writer from England. So between some of the books that I read, either about business or life or purpose, I also read the light books, fiction, and I kind of mix them up depending on my, how I feel.
I love that. And I particularly love your topic of finding meaning. I'm 48 and I'm starting to now think about some of those same things, as the next phase of life. Because you kind of work so hard to get to this point, and you're kind of considering, what is next. And I think a lot of people that are listening that will resonate with, because there are a lot of people in similar demographics listening to this podcast right now. Speaking of other people listening to this podcast right now, what advice would you give the healthcare executive on the other side of this that's listening, that is having to navigate a fast changing landscape, and, they're involved in some M&A stuff. And, based on your own experiences, what do you think has been the most valuable advice that you can give them?
I mean, number one, there, like I said at the beginning, there are bad times and good times. And, one of the advice that even if you've hit a wall or a period of time where it's difficult for the company, there's definitely a rainbow after the rain. And so the advice is just to stay disciplined and calm and not panic and make some decisions that are going to be negative for the company. Being able to make the right decisions are very important, and being able to put a lot of thought into it and not make impulsive decisions. And also be very versatile, having ability to pivot. For example, if the COVID, one of the things that all of a sudden all the offices are closed, like what do we do? But to maintain that, level of stability and make the right decisions, or the right decisions at the time, they might be different a year from now, I think is very important. And I would say don't panic. Like sometimes people, they get into M&A, they hear all the stories. Oh, you're going to get this acquisitions and you use this financial engineering where you buy for like 6x and then you sell for 12x. At the end of the day, the other advice is you're building a business, and the business has to work for both you and your employees. And the most important, for patients. And you cannot build a business based on financial engineering. You've got to build business on solid principles of, caring for people and doing the best treatment you can and high customer satisfaction. And if those principles are the core of the company, and the CEOs don't gear away from it no matter what, even though sometimes they get pressure from the financial sponsor, oh, you need to do this. You have to be true to your honest. For me, it's a little easier because I'm a CEO and a doctor. So I always have my doctor hat on first, and I decide what is better for my patients. How do I make the patients more satisfied? Because that's always the winning ticket. But for the ones who are just purely business decisions and maybe don't have the doctor hat to put on, they just need to be true to themselves and to their core principles, and something that they created with our partners. What is your culture? What's your core principles? Why are you doing this? It's not just for financial gain. There's got to be a much bigger purpose. Again, coming back to the book, what's the purpose of your organization? What are you trying to do? And if you stay true to, the CEOs stay true to themselves and the purpose, and continue reattaching themselves to that, I think they will be very successful, as opposed to doing tons of M&A because they're available, or doing tons of de novos and overbuilding, and then they're like, well, I can handle all of the build out. So it's important to have a good stability and a good plan, of course.
Excellent insights from Dr. Jan Kalika of Image Orthodontics. I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. Till next time.
I appreciate you having me very much. Our group is called Image Specialty Partners because we're not just orthodontics, but Image Orthodontics was my baby that I created 25 years ago. But Image Specialty Partners now attracts other partners, orthodontists, pediatric dentists, oral surgeons, to join our platform and really work together as a collaborative universe of specialists that delivers high level of service to the patients.
Here's your chance.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Last but not least, plug the website. What is your website?
ImageSpecialtyPartners.com.
Perfect.
So for those of you who are interested, you could join me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, feedback, I want to become friends. I'm always open to new relationships and new business partnerships, new ideas. So happy to entertain all of it.
Perfect. Thank you again for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Healthcare CEO Show. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for more insights from the top. Until next time, lead boldly and care deeply. See you on the next episode.